is your official pick for what the Cowboys do tonight? Even if that pick is you think they trade out the first round. I know we've thrown out some potential deals, and if they pick, who do you think they pick? I know there is a wide contingent of people who would love to see them trade up for Bijan Robinson. I am with Corey, and I could view very, very few examples where I would want to trade up. What do you guys say?
Kyle, you are going to be on the draft coverage tonight with Broadus and Sean and Wolchuk and everybody, so let's turn it over to you.
I don't know if I would trade up. Would they trade up? Possibly. They've got names on their board that they really, really like up in the probably back half of the teens, early 20s, to where it wouldn't take a whole lot to go up and get them. If you're going to go to, let's say, 22, it would only take about your third-round pick. You wouldn't have to put anything else in there. You would swap first-rounders, you throw a third, and then you would go up and get your guy. The one pause that I have on that is I think this football team has a couple of different holes that you need to fill outside of just one or two. So I want that third-round pick. I want to be able to have a top 100 player to go to. So me specifically, if you're asking me, GM Kyle Youmans, would I go and trade up? No, I wouldn't. But do I think the Cowboys would trade up if the right scenario is there? Absolutely. I think they've had those conversations even during the press conference earlier this week. Jerry talked about trade up or trade down. Both are on the table. Yes, it's kind of how it goes, but I think both of those conversations have happened.
What the holes to fill for this team? Mm-hmm. You're thinking you can get a hole to fill day one starter. Yeah. Which positions are the ones that you see?
I would say offensive line. If the best case scenario is there, you get like a Darnell Wright from Tennessee to fall into the early 20s, then you can maybe go up and get him. I still like these tight ends a lot. There's a lot of buzz that the tight end position isn't going to be addressed in the first round. Instead, they would maybe wait till the second or the third. I'm okay with that. I think there's a lot of tight ends in this class. It's a very deep class, but you could get a day one ready-made starter at tight end and an impact player on your offense if you do draft one in the first round. And then kind of a sneaky position is edge rusher. It's been said that Will McDonald is on their board and very high on their board, and Dan Quinn went and worked him out in Ames for his pro day. He's been on the Cowboys board for quite some time. I think if they wanted to add an edge rusher, he would probably be the most realistic name because Nolan Smith from Georgia is not going to fall. You're not going to see any of those big-name guys up at the top fall, but Will McDonald would be a realistic pick. And even if he's there in the 20s, I think they would at least get on the phone and see what it would take to go get him.
Kyle, do you feel like we had Stephen Jones on earlier in the week, and what you just said about tight end, and one of the reasons I threw out Drew Sanders' name as the pick is
he's in there too.
He said, well, there's a lot of depth in this draft. He said the deepest positions in this draft were tight end, running back, and wide receiver, which made me think, I'm wondering your perspective from here. Are the Cowboys kind of letting us know, look, we're going to take a tight end, we're going to take a running back, and we're going to take a receiver, but this is such a deep class, we don't have to worry about them in the first or maybe second round?
I think you're spot on. I think that's what's going to happen tonight is they're going to pick up a spot where Cowboys fans are going to look at them and say, we don't need that position right now. It's not a massive need, but the value of the draft is going to be day 2 and day 3 in a lot of these positions. I would throw corner into the mix as well. I know that's what Steven said. I think this cornerback class is very deep. You can maybe stack up some picks there. Maybe they go with a corner early, though, with an Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State. I think he's another prospect that they've been linked to for quite some time. He's got some length to him.
And he's supposedly been climbing up some people's boards, which has made the thought about could Joey Porter actually be in play more than people might have thought
That would be awesome. I would be all for that. If Joey Porter from Penn State is there, oh, man, that would be a party. You talk about throwing a draft party. That would be one for sure. But I think, Mike, you're spot on in the fact that the position that is taken tonight is going to be indicative of how the draft flows the rest of the weekend. And usually that's the case, but I think more so even this time around because there are positions that you don't have a deep class in, so you might have to go and attack it early.
And so I promise I hear what you're saying, and I understand what you said about tight end. I was curious, though, if it's Kincaid or Mayer, which direct, you get the choice. Who do you like better?
I like Kincaid better specifically. I think he has more upside as a receiver. I think he's ready as a blocker, but he still has room to grow in his game. But as a receiver, he'd be the best receiver possibly at tight end in the entire division.
He might have the best hands out of even all the receivers in this.
It might be. He might be, and he's another one of those guys that may not be there at 26. You may have to go get him if that's the case. Michael Mayer it's a step up from Jake Ferguson's sort of scouting report that you had last year on the 4th rounder. All-around player, good blocker, good receiver, but still not to his ceiling yet and what he could do. He has some yard after the catch ability that I think intrigues some people. And then also keep an eye on Sam Laporta out of Iowa. That would be another one that I think if, let's say, Mayer and Kincaid are gone and Laporta's sitting there at 26, the board dries up in a specific way. I think he's one that the Cowboys like. Both at 26 and at 58, I think they would probably look at him either way.
If that's the case, then isn't that, like, if we're going off of BPA as well, isn't that just an inherent overdraft?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it very well could be. I mocked him to 58, and we have a mock draft that's coming out on DallasCowboys.com today. So my final mock, I have Sam Laporta going at 58. So that would not be an overdraft for me by any stretch.
A lot of Cowboy fans are in love with Bijan Robinson, obviously, because they've seen his career in college and premium position to watch.
Yeah.
If it's not Bijan Robinson at 26, who's the running back you would love to see paired up with Pollard this year?
Throughout the whole draft or at 26?
In the whole draft, because I'm going to assume if Robinson isn't there, they're not taking a running back.
Yeah, I think the only other name would be Jahmyr Gibbs, and I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. I think they would rather wait. I think they will take a running back at some point this weekend. I don't know how early. That's the one thing that I haven't been able to really locked down yet, but I really like Zach Charbonnet from UCLA. Talk about a 1-2 punch with Tony Pollard. I think Charbonnet brings a physicality that Pollard doesn't have, and he brings an ability that if Pollard's not a part of this team past 2023, that he could carry the load as a number one. He had 150 carries 2 years ago. He had 203 carries last year. He is a bell cow or was a bell cow for UCLA, and he brings some physicality to him.
Let's compare him then, if we can, to – because I was telling some people I'm an A&M guy.
Yeah.
And people got mad at me yesterday because I said A-Chain hasn't shown he can be – or people have questions about if he can be a primary back. And people go, well, he was the primary back last year, but he's like a good 4 inches shorter than Charbonnet. Is it the size that makes the difference? Because – people feel like the UCLA kid can go in there and potentially be a lead back, whereas A-Chain, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing about A-Chain specifically. I mean, he led the SEC in yards per carry.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
awesome.
Big-time threat. He was a home run threat, but he wasn't on the field as much as a Charbonnet. He wasn't on the field as much as a Bijan Robinson. He just made the splashes when you had him on the field, which is a good thing. I have A-Chain one spot below Charbonnet in my board. So I have Charbonnet as running back 3. I have A-Chain as running back 4. They were the only 2 second-round grades I have on my entire running back board.
Is Roschon a third rounder?
4th. I have him at running back 10, which I think speaks to the depth of the class because Kendre Miller's in front of him from TCU, Kenny McIntosh from Georgia, Eric Gray from Oklahoma, Tank Bigsby from Auburn. I like this running back class a lot, which, again, speaks to if you don't get Bijan Robinson in the first round, there's probably going to be a running back available. A-Chain, I know for a fact. I mean, they brought him in for a combine formal.
Yeah.
They like him. They like his speed. He ran a 4.32. I mean, he was literally a part of the track team at Texas A&M. Utilize that. I mean, anytime you can add some speed, team speed to your offense, let's roll. I think that'd be a fun midday pick.
All right, so, Kevin, do you know who is the 26th player on Kyle's top 100 big board?
Ooh.
Now, this is, obviously this isn't the exact order, but the 26th player on his big board.
Hendon Hooker.
That's incorrect, but I appreciate that.
It's worth a shot. Oh, well, give me one more chance. Jordan Addison.
Incorrect. Say right position, think more local.
Oh, Quentin Johnston.
Quentin Johnston.
Yep.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to say Zay Flowers. So I'm glad that you said local, and I was like, okay, I got it.
No Zach Evans. I've heard too many bad things from high school people about him at North Shore.
See, and I'm one of those high school people. I still think he's a very talented player, but yeah, he had some North Shore question marks. He got kicked off the team going into a state championship game. That's never a great sign. But he had a great career at Ole Miss and at TCU, so there you go.
Your thoughts then, like on the wide receiver group, and would that be the receiver that they would want, or would they be thinking one of the other guys that might fall to them?
That's a tough one because there are so many guys that it looks like will be there. Because initially it looked like Jackson Smith and Jigba, another local product out of Ohio State, Jordan Addison from USC, and then Johnston would not be there at 26. Those would kind of be the 3 guys right there at the top that were unavailable for the Cowboys. Now it looks like maybe one or two of those guys could be there, but I still don't think they value the wide receiver position the same way that the media values the wide receiver position in this draft specifically. I don't think they like it as much as classes of the past.
And they also feel like, hey, we accomplished this. We have CeeDee Lamb. We just got Brandon Cooks. We feel pretty comfortable with this group right now. But, let's add some more.
I think there's a chance for this wide receiver class to get flipped on its head tonight and tomorrow.
Really?
I think there's going to be names that we have not talked about that are going early, like let's say an Xavier Hutchinson from Iowa State. I mean, he's a top 100 player for me. He's not a top 100 player for everybody, but he may go either late tonight or early tomorrow in round 2. And then I also Jonathan Mingo, who was reportedly a 30 visit from Ole Miss. There's rumors that he could go in the first round tonight. Not to Dallas specifically, but just in general, he may not be on the board by the time 58 comes around in the second.
Who are you most scared of Philadelphia takes at 10?
Jalen Carter. If he falls to 10, I do not want to see Jalen Carter on that defensive line. Bijan's a close number 2 in that regard, but I think either one of those guys, I'm not happy.
Because people are still nuts about Jalen Carter. If I recall correctly, I think Broadus has him as the number 1 on his board.
I think Wolchuk does too. He's number 2 on mine,
Yeah.
so he's there. I would hate that if he ends up in Philadelphia. You put him with his former teammate and Jordan Davis too.
They were monsters.
Yeah,
together.
no, let's not do that. Let's keep them away from Philly.
Now, from the 682, somebody told us they got the script early.
Okay.
And here's how the draft is going to play out.
Good.
And it goes against something that you said.
Love it.
So, Nolan Smith goes to the Cowboys at number 26, and then Buffalo takes Quentin Johnston right after that. And so you get Nolan Smith in this scenario. I don't think that would happen, but that would be great. And then from the 2 and 4, if a quarterback fell to 26, should the Cowboys take him? I feel like Steven was clear about this. I don't know if when push comes to shove, let's just say it's Will Levis. I don't believe that's going to happen. Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. But they made it very clear. Steven was like, but our board is not the same as everybody else's board. He goes, we've seen the mocks. There are some that we like. There are some that we don't.
Yep.
And so I feel like the answer might be, like, let's say Anthony Richardson's on the board. They're like, we didn't have him as a first rounder. And we still had 2 first rounders left. That's why we didn't take him. Not we got Dak.
Yeah.
It's going to be because of that. That's just my gut feeling.
I think I echo what he said to a certain extent. Quarterback as a position is not out of the question this weekend. Sure. I think later on in the weekend, there are guys that they really like, most notably Clayton Tune from Houston. They like Aiden O'Connell from Purdue, a couple names that have been kind of floating around there. But I think specifically in the first round, it would have to take something monumental for Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud to drop for them to even consider. And not even saying that they would even take them. I'm saying to even consider taking them at 26 over some of these other positions, it would have to take a monumental move. I don't think Will Levis would be on that conversation, Richardson or Hendon Hooker, neither one of those guys. I'm not as high on those 3 guys specifically as the national media. I have them outside of my top 30. I understand there's a value to the quarterback position, and those guys will go early, but I just don't value those guys as much as I do a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud.
From the 940, because we did ask for some predictions, Dalton Kincaid will be the first-round pick, and I know that's why we brought up him there. From the 682, Nolan Smith, there are people hoping that Nolan Smith happens. And then from the 469, I'd take offensive line, Peter Skoransky or the aforementioned Darnell Wright. I mean, that would have to be a fall. And if that were the case, I think the Cowboys would jump on that opportunity.
Yeah. If either one of those guys fall to 26, I'll go turn in the card. I'll run to Kansas City. I did run a half marathon a couple years ago for a draft bet that I lost, but I'm not running actually to Kansas City.
What was the bet?
It was so I put it on Twitter. Somebody asked the question, what happens if CeeDee Lamb falls to 17? And I was like, that's not happening. There's no chance that happens. If he falls and the Cowboys take him, I will run to the Star and back from my apartment, which was in Little Elm. So it was
kind of a jog.
13 and a half miles. It was a legitimate half marathon. And I mean,
on the highway,
look at
too?
me. Straight. Yeah. It was on straight sidewalks all the way through Frisco.
This is the most efficient route.
Yeah. So if you're still hoping for Nolan Smith, there is precedent for Youmans to be like, it ain't happening.
Could happen.
And then it happens.
Yeah.